Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. I never thought our gender reveal would turn into the most shocking day of my life. We had been planning it for months. Everything was perfect. The decorations, the cake, the anticipation. But as we all gathered, ready to find out the baby's gender, something unexpected happened. My husband, Mark, was standing by my side, grinning. But then, a man walked in. He was tall, with a confident stride. I didn't know him, but there was something about his presence that immediately made me uneasy. He wasn't just anyone. He was someone with a message that would change everything. The man walked straight up to Mark, his eyes filled with frustration and hurt. "We need to talk," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My heart skipped a beat. What was going on? Mark's face instantly changed. The smile faded. It was replaced with tension, guilt, and something I couldn't place. This wasn't normal. Mark turned to me, but his eyes were full of regret. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. The man, standing there, looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "I'm his boyfriend." A wave of confusion hit me, and for a moment, I couldn't process his words. My mind raced. My husband had a boyfriend? How could he keep something so huge from me? And why now, at our gender reveal party? The room went silent. The guests exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of how to react. I was speechless, my eyes locked on Mark. He didn't speak, only looked down, avoiding my gaze. I had so many questions, but my mind couldn't catch up with the situation. The man continued, his voice firm yet shaky. "I've been with him for months." The world around me blurred, but I couldn't look away from Mark's face. The betrayal was evident in his eyes, but his silence was deafening. I felt like I was suffocating. The man who claimed to be his boyfriend was still standing there, waiting for me to process the reality of it all. The hurt was unbearable. I had never imagined that the man I was carrying a child with, the man I trusted, could betray me like this. But here we were. "How long?" I finally managed to ask, my voice shaking. The man looked at me with pity, then back at Mark. "Longer than you think," he replied. "He's been lying to both of us." Those words hit me like a punch in the stomach. My hands went cold, and I felt dizzy. I wanted to scream, to ask Mark how he could do this to me, to us. But before I could get the words out, Mark finally spoke. His voice was low, full of shame. "I never meant for it to happen like this," he said. "I'm so sorry." His apology only made things worse. I needed answers, not empty words. I turned to the man, desperate for more answers. "What is this? How long has it been going on?" The man hesitated, clearly uncomfortable but determined to tell me the truth. "We've been seeing each other for 6 months, he said. "Mark was supposed to be with me. But then he told me about you, and everything changed." My stomach churned as the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together. Mark had been living a double life. He had been with me, pretending everything was fine, while secretly being with him. I couldn't breathe. I had been so blind, so naive. How had I missed all the signs? The late nights, the sudden distance between us, the lack of intimacy. It all made sense now, but the pain was too much to bear. I had trusted him with my heart, with my life, and he had shattered everything. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked Mark, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why keep this from me?" He didn't respond immediately, and when he did, his words were laced with guilt. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared." The man, whose name was Ryan, didn't seem angry at Mark. Instead, he seemed sad, almost resigned. "I don't blame you for not knowing," he said, his tone gentle. But I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I felt my world unraveling before me, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. My baby, my family, my husband, all of it felt like it was slipping away. Ryan looked at me one last time, then turned to leave. "I just wanted to tell you the truth," he said softly. "You deserve that much." And just like that, he was gone. I stood there, paralyzed, as the room around me buzzed with hushed whispers. My friends, my family, everyone had witnessed the most humiliating moment of my life. How was I supposed to face them now? How could I even begin to process what had just happened? Mark reached for me, but I pulled away. "I need some space," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. He didn't argue. He didn't say anything. Instead, he stood there, helpless, as I walked away, trying to figure out how to pick up the broken pieces of my heart. I spent the rest of the evening in a daze. The party was ruined, the gender reveal nothing but a distant memory. I couldn't focus on anything, not the cake, not the decorations, not even the people who tried to console me. My mind kept going back to Ryan's words. 6 months. 6 months of lies. How had Mark pulled this off without me noticing? I felt a mixture of anger, confusion, and betrayal swirling inside me. I locked myself in a room, needing to be alone with my thoughts. I couldn't bear facing Mark right now. Later that night, Mark came to the room. I heard him knock softly before he opened the door. "Can we talk?" His voice was strained, but I didn't want to talk. "Not yet. Not with him." "I don't know what you want from me, Mark," I replied, my voice cold. "How can I look at you the same way after everything you've done?" He didn't answer right away, just stood there, waiting for me to calm down. But how could I? My whole world had just crumbled. Everything we had built together was now built on lies. Mark sat down next to me on the bed, his hand reaching for mine. I pulled it away. "I'm so sorry," he said, the words sounding hollow in my ears. "I never meant to hurt you. But the damage was already done. How long were you planning on keeping this a secret?" I asked, barely able to hold back the tears. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly distressed. "I didn't want to lose you. I thought I could manage it." His excuse only made it worse. He thought he could manage a secret relationship? "You don't get to lie to me and expect me to understand, Mark," I snapped. The silence between us was unbearable. I didn't know what I wanted from him anymore. I didn't even know what I wanted for myself. "I never thought it would come to this," he said quietly. "I thought I could keep everything under control. But now it was too late. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same again." My mind kept racing back to the party, to Ryan's presence, to the way everything had spiraled out of control in front of all those people. This wasn't just a private betrayal. It was public. It was humiliating. I needed to get out of the house. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. "I'm going to stay at my mom's for a while," I told Mark, standing up from the bed. His face twisted with panic. "No, please, don't leave. We can fix this." "Fix this? How could we fix this? How could we go back to pretending everything was fine when everything had changed?" "I need space, Mark," I said firmly. "I need to think." He stood up too, stepping closer. "I'll give you space, but don't leave me. Please." His voice cracked, and for a second, I almost felt bad for him. But then I remembered everything he had done. I couldn't feel sorry for him anymore. The drive to my mom's house was long, and I didn't speak much. My mind kept replaying the scene at the party, Ryan's face, Mark's silence. How could Mark have let it go this far? What kind of person could live such a lie? When I arrived at my mom's house, she could see something was wrong right away. "What happened?" she asked, concern etched on her face. I shook my head, unable to find the right words. I didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't want to admit that my husband had cheated on me, not just with any woman, but with a man. And it was all exposed in front of our friends and family. My mom listened patiently as I told her everything. "I don't know what to do, Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "I love him, but I don't know if I can ever trust him again." She sighed, pulling me into a hug. "You don't have to decide anything right now," she said softly. "You need time to heal, to figure out what you really want." But that didn't make it any easier. I felt lost, torn between the love I had for Mark and the betrayal that ran so deep. How could he do this to me? How could he keep a secret like this for so long? The next few days were a blur. Mark called and texted constantly, begging me to come home, to talk. I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time I saw his name on my phone, my heart clenched with anger and sadness. How could I have been so blind? I kept replaying all the small moments, trying to figure out when things went wrong. But there were no answers. I couldn't trust myself to know what was real anymore. I was consumed by doubt and pain, and the thought of facing Mark again terrified me. Mark finally showed up at my mom's house, uninvited. When I opened the door, he looked at me with desperate eyes. "Please, just talk to me," he pleaded. "I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you. But I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "You can't just say sorry and expect everything to go back to normal, Mark," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You've broken something that can't be fixed with words." His face crumpled, and for a moment, I almost felt pity for him. But then I remembered everything he had done. Mark stood there, looking like a man who had lost everything. But I couldn't find it in myself to feel sorry for him anymore. The trust had been shattered, and no apology could glue it back together. "I don't know what to do with this," I said, motioning between us. "I don't even know who you are anymore." The pain in his eyes deepened, but I had to be strong. I need time, Mark. I need space to figure out what I want. He nodded, tears filling his eyes, but still, he didn't leave. I can't lose you, he whispered. But his words were no longer enough. The damage had been done. I spent the following days in a haze. It was hard to focus on anything, and even harder to shake the image of Ryan's face, the way he had exposed everything so publicly. I couldn't stop thinking about him and what had happened at the party. What kind of man was Mark? He had lied, and now I had to live with that truth. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't be with someone who hid such a huge part of themselves from me. My heart was breaking, but I knew deep down that leaving him might be the only way to heal. I spoke to my best friend, Sarah, about everything. I don't know if I can forgive him, I admitted, my voice heavy with sadness. How do I go back to a marriage after this? Sarah looked at me with sympathy, but no judgment. You don't have to forgive him right away. You need to think about what you need. Do you still love him? Or is this just the end? Her question hit me hard. I had loved Mark so deeply, but could I ever see him the same way again? Could I ever forget that he had been hiding such a huge secret? After my conversation with Sarah, I spent a lot of time reflecting on my relationship with Mark. Our love had always been built on trust, but that foundation was now cracked. I thought about the life we had built together, the plans, the dreams, the future. And then I thought about Ryan. What did he know about Mark that I didn't? How long had they been involved? And what kind of future did they share that I hadn't even known about? I couldn't stop feeling betrayed, and I couldn't stop wondering if I'd ever be able to forgive him for this. Mark kept reaching out, asking for a chance to explain, to fix everything. But each time I saw his name on my phone, I felt a wave of dread. What could he possibly say that would make this better? What was there left to explain? The man I thought I knew had turned into a stranger. I had been his wife, his partner in everything, and yet I had been the last to know about the most important part of his life. I was furious, hurt, and utterly confused. Was it even possible to rebuild from this? One evening, I decided to confront Mark again. I couldn't keep avoiding him forever. He came over to my mom's house, and we sat in the living room, the silence between us thick and uncomfortable. I don't know where to go from here, I said, my voice steady but strained. I don't know if I can forgive you. Mark looked at me with tears in his eyes, clearly broken. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said. I didn't know how to get out of it. But his words felt empty now. His regret was too little, too late. As I sat there listening to him, I realized something. I had been so consumed with the pain of betrayal that I hadn't stopped to think about what I truly wanted. What did I need? Did I want to fix things with Mark, or was it time to let go? I need time to think, I told him, finally making a decision. I can't be with you right now. I need to figure out who I am without you. Mark's face fell, but he nodded, understanding the gravity of what I was saying. I'll give you the space you need, he said quietly. But I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on myself, on healing. I talked to my mom, my friends, anyone who would listen. But the truth was, I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. The person I had been before felt so far away. And when I saw pictures of Mark and Ryan together on social media, it only made everything worse. How could he be with him, after everything he had done to me? How could I be expected to just move on? It became clear to me that Mark wasn't the man I thought he was. He had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even fully comprehend. But as painful as it was, I had to accept that he was someone else now. Someone who had hidden his true self from me for so long. The reality was that our marriage was built on lies, and no matter how much I wanted things to go back to how they were, I knew deep down that they never would. I made the difficult decision to end things with Mark. It wasn't easy. Part of me still loved him, but I couldn't keep living a lie. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. When I told him I was leaving, he begged me to reconsider, to give him another chance. But I couldn't. I had to put myself first. I needed to move on, to find a life without the shadow of his betrayal looming over me. The aftermath of everything was overwhelming. The divorce, the emotions, the questions from friends and family. It felt like it would never end. But slowly, I started to heal. I began focusing on myself, on my future, and on the life I would build for my child. It was hard, and there were days when I felt lost. But with each passing day, I felt stronger. I wasn't defined by what Mark had done. I was stronger than the betrayal. I would rise above it. Looking back, I realized that the gender reveal party had been the turning point in my life. It was the day I found out who my husband truly was. And it was the day I finally took control of my own life. It wasn't easy. It was painful, heartbreaking, and messy. But in the end, I knew I had made the right choice. I wasn't going to let someone else's lies define my future. My story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, I would be the one writing the chapters. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you like the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.